at the time, I couldn't find a left-handed instrument. So I started on electric bass, and I just went to a shop and bought a right-handed instrument and just turned it upside down, and I've been playing that way ever since.
We're talking about a big topic today on the podcast that's never been brought up before. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are chatting today with Bernard Gallone, who is the bassist for Moulin Rogue in Paris and is a left-handed bassist. And guess what? I'm a left-handed bassist too. Though, unlike Bernard, I play the traditional, finger with the left hand, bow with the right hand. Well, Bernard plays with his right hand for fingering, left hand for plucking. He plays primarily pizzicato, and he's got his bass strung up just like a traditional setup would be, with G string going down to E string, player perspective left to right. So we talk about what it's like being a left-handed bassist or musician in a right-handed world. We talk about his background going to Berkeley, what it's like being the band leader at Moulin Rogue, and many other things. Really fun conversation. And this episode is brought to you by D'Addario Strings, Upton Bass, and A440 Violin Shop. We'll talk more about all of them later. I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Bernard Gallone.
Hi, Jason.
How are you doing? How's your day?
Well, I'm not working today. I took my evening off, and it's just an ordinary day. Some practicing this morning, and
nice.
It's just it's nice outside, and nice day. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Well, so what's the subject today?
Yeah, well, I know there's a lot we can talk about, right? So I love like the idea of left, as a fellow left-handed bass player, that I thought that was really interesting, because I've like so many people, I play just like all the right-handed bass players, but do you play left hand for fingering, right hand, or do you play?
Well, I started on a string instrument with the electric bass, and at the time I couldn't find a left-handed instrument, and so I started on electric bass, and I just went to a shop and bought a right-handed instrument and just turned it upside down, and I've been playing that way ever since. So acoustic bass, I just did the same, actually.
Wow. So you're fingering with the right hand and plucking with the left hand?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And, on the electric bass, that was fine, because, I'm self-taught on that instrument. So, I just learned that way. On acoustic bass, I had some trouble with, when I tried to take lessons in a conservatory, they wouldn't hear of that, about left-handed string players. So I took some private lessons for 2 years. But the teacher he didn't mind, just showed me how to, make the first steps on the instrument, and that was all right. But I've been mainly playing in jazz context, on the double bass. I've never had the opportunity to play in orchestra or classical music. I'm interested in, bowing. I've really become interested in, learning how to get a good sound and, with the bow, but keep me busy for the next 10 years or so.
Sure. Yeah, the bow is a whole,
It's a whole life, yes. Yeah. I suppose.
Wow. So do you have the strings reversed then? So that from a right-handed setup?
No. I play. It is a right-handed bass. I mean, you could play on that instrument, right away.
Interesting. I'm trying to remember because Paul McCartney is somebody that comes to mind immediately as a left-handed bass player, and I think I don't recall whether he reverses strings so it went E A D G the other direction. I don't remember, but but it seems like it's a more accepted, I guess, maybe thing in the electric bass world because there are instruments manufactured.
Well, when you offered me the opportunity to talk with you on the podcast, I thought, well, I better make some research. So I called Patrick Charton.
Oh, of course.
And also I contacted Upton Bass just to know if they make left-handed basses. And actually they do. Eric Roy told me they make about 5 or 6 a year. And Patrick also told me that it's possible to adapt my bass, which is a right-handed bass, for playing left-handed because it doesn't sound really good, it's all right for bowing, hardcore sound. It doesn't really matter, but for pizzicato, then it does. Some of the fundamentals are missing, and it has to be adapted to left-handed playing.
That's great that Upton does that. I figure I'm not surprised. They're a very consumer focused company in terms of that. Absolutely. And Patrick, of course, Patrick's a great guy and friend of the bass.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and is very open to those questions. It's not the case of all luthiers that have been asking, in Paris. Some of them just oh no, not left-handed. No, I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're emailing back and forth about that, and I was thinking, I don't really see violinists, violists, cellists either playing left-handed. But for some reason, the electric bass world seems to be more open-minded, or maybe electric bass and electric guitar. That's a much more commonly accepted. You can order your Fender jazz bass or P bass, left-handed or right-handed. I've definitely never. I'm thinking of all the students I've taught, all the places I've taught. I've never seen. I don't know if I've ever seen an acoustic string player playing reversed. I'm trying to think if. Have you seen other people?
No.
There was a violinist in a string quartet in the mid 20th century. I forget the quartet, but I remember one of the violinists played left-handed, and actually the group was set up in a really interesting way. So the violinists kind of mirrored each other. The left-handed person was on one side and the right-handed was on the other.
Mm-hmm. I think it makes sense in the classical world because, if you think of an orchestra, it would be probably a problem for the other, the guy sitting next to you if, the bow is not going the same way. I understand that it should, that isn't right, really, for the way the orchestra is.
Yeah, I guess the orchestra is all about sort of uniformity. Like everybody, you look across and you see everything moving the same way. But I like the idea of one person going the other direction. There's no rule in any contract I've seen that you can't do that. But
maybe nowadays would probably be more accepted. Maybe I don't know.
So I've always been interested because I do know some other left-handed bass players, and we've had discussions about this. Like, is there any advantage to playing like a traditional right-handed setup, but as a left-handed player? Like, is my left hand faster on the instrument? I don't know because I've never learned the other way.
I have a friend, a guitar player, who is left-handed. And who learned playing right-handed because he found that his picking hand was his left hand was better. It gave him an advantage playing right-handed on a right-handed instrument. Mm-hmm. But I just can't. I tried, but it's just impossible for me. It's.
Well, I think it makes sense.
I don't know why.
I think it makes sense that the picking hand, just like the picking hand or the bowing hand or whatever, it does make sense to me that the dominant hand should be doing that, because I think, I spend most of my time bowing, and I think that having a strong bow arm kind of like that, that's the thing that people struggle with actually the most, is like developing the bow arm. So having that be your dominant hand does make a lot of sense to me. Even though the left hand, you think of that as the maybe more complex activity with all the fingering and stuff. I think that at least in terms of bowing, but probably in terms of regardless in the string world, it makes sense that should be the dominant hand. So I've always thought that I'm really fast with fingering, but maybe my bowing isn't as good as it could be.
Well, did you have any when you learned playing the instrument? Were there any? With your teachers, did you have any comments or about that?
I started on violin, like so many left-handed people. I grew up in the era of you just learn how to do things. You learn how to swing a racket like a right-handed person. You learn how to cut with scissors like a right-handed person. So I've just spent my whole life doing things the uncomfortable way. So I'm sort of I've never had any other experience, but if I was given the opportunity to learn left-handed, I probably would have. It just was never presented to me. Yeah. I knew that. I think the two people, Paul McCartney and Jimi Hendrix, were people that I thought of as okay, well, certainly we can play this instrument a different way, because these two, well-known people do. So I knew that somebody at least had done that, but I think I was so far enough along in my playing career that that I never thought about going back. Mm-hmm. But did you have anybody? You must have gotten some resistance, because I know you went to Berkeley and studied.
Yes, but at the time I was only playing electric bass.
Yeah.
No, the first time my first lesson there, the teacher look at me and said, "Oh, all right," and but that was not a problem. Mm-hmm. Anyway, at the time I was more interested in writing and arranging, so I had bass lessons, of course, but that I was more into writing, so I didn't really care about what the issue was my way of playing. That was all right. Mm.
So, how long have you been playing at Moulin Rogue? You're the band leader.
I've been playing there for a long time. I started maybe 20 years ago, but for a few years I was just playing for 1 day a week. Mm-hmm. Just replacing the bass player there. And then he left, and I was offered the gig, and after a few years the band leader left, and I was offered to take his place, and I've been doing that for 17 years now.
Wow. How many days a week is that? Is that a 6 days a week, 7 days a week, or?
It's open all year long. Yeah.
Okay.
365 years days a year. Yeah. But I am the only one full-time player. Mm-hmm. And so I'm there 6 nights a week. All the others are part-time. About 15 days a month. It's a small band. We only 6 on stage. We play before the show, there is a dinner before the show, so we play for about an hour and a half. All together we are 24, with all the part-time players. So my job is, I've got many things to do, play every night and make sure that everybody is there at the right time, arranging the schedules, preparing the rehearsals, auditions sometimes, so paperwork also. So it's time consuming, but I really enjoy that. It's nice. It's a really good job.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, a well-known name, of course. I've never been, but of course, I remember back in maybe the 2000s or so, there was a movie, Moulin Rouge, the musical.
Well, that's very romantic view of the place, but it's it helped, make the place even more known across the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of freedom to play what we want. It's of course it's a sort of a cover band. We play some jazz, and we have 2 singers, male and female. So we play some Prone repertoire and Michael Berkeley and
nice.
Some Latin music also. So, but we have a lot of freedom to play what we want. So it's really nice.
This episode is brought to you by the A440 Violin Shop. It's located just down the street from Wrigley Field in beautiful Chicago on the north side, just off the Brown Line. I have been going there my entire adult life, and they have been fantastic, both for repairs. I've had cracks repaired. I've had seams glued. I've had all sorts of students go to A440 to get instruments, to get bows. They're available with a smile, do wonderful work, and definitely check them out if you are in the Midwest. A440violinshop.com, and thanks for sponsoring the podcast. This episode is brought to you by Upton Bass, and have you checked out this new travel bass from Upton? Oh my goodness, what a cool looking design. What a great sounding bass. It's just totally remarkable. And the way that they're launching this product, it's just so perfectly Upton. It's bold, it's innovative. You got to check out these videos of Gary Upton unfolding, I don't even know how you describe it, putting together, I guess, this travel bass. It takes almost no time. It is in a Samsonite piece of luggage. I kid you not. It is just a suitcase. It is literally a suitcase bass, but it comes together and it's a real bass. It's a nice sounding bass. It's so cool. Just another example of the way in which Upton is innovating and blazing new trails for the bass community. So thank you for what you do, Upton, and thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. Now did you grow up in France?
Yes.
Okay.
I lived for about 25 years in the south of France. And then I went to Berkeley for, I think that was in 83 and 84. Then I went to Belgium for 3 years because I met a piano player in Berkeley who invited me. It was... So I played jazz and blues for about 3 years in Belgium. It was really nice. Then moved to Paris and been there ever since.
What attracted you to Berkeley? I mean, obviously, like well-known music school, great, so many great players. What attracted you to that place?
I had at that time it was like going to Mars, it was an adventure. So, we couldn't, it's before internet or computers, so you had to find information about Berkeley, ask you. So I had a friend, a guitar player who went there about 4 or 5 years before, And he was writing to us. Wow. So I was really interested in learning more about harmony and jazz and writing and all those, theoretical aspects of music. And I knew that it was the place to go, So I decided to save for about 3 or 4 years, and then, I just regret that I didn't stay longer. Actually, I could have stayed longer, but for some reasons I came back to France, well,
it sounds like things have worked out quite well. You inspired me to try my bass, reversing the hands, and
that's dangerous.
Well, but it's really interesting because it reminds you what it feels like to be a beginner, right? You got all the intellect, but it's like going back to your very first lesson, trying to play with the left finger with the right hand and play, bow or pluck with the left hand. It's quite an experience.
Yeah. I tried to play the electric bass the other way, right-handed, and I think if I really had to, I probably could, but it's, going back many years back. Yeah. I as I told you, I made some research because for me it was. I think it was a problem when I was a kid. When I was in school, in primary school, they told me you should write, you must write with your right hand. And at that time it wasn't school teachers. They really there was no questioning about that, and. I never thought about that until recently, because I found out that I think I am lucky because it's not really a problem in my life. Although I think that probably I would have been a different person if I hadn't had to write. It seems not very important subject, but I think it is, because through conversations and asking around me, I found that many people who have had that experience had loads of problems in their lives, some are really bad. So I think it's even today, if I'm a bit confused, and it's I don't know if I really must go further into that direction, try to know, and I know there are therapists, who address those people like me, and I'm not sure if it's I want to go further into that, because I don't know what I can find about myself.
It's very interesting. So you learned to write with your right hand, or you were told to? So
I was told, and there was no choice.
Okay. Well, actually, that's a good. So I write and I use a fork with my left hand. But I still, most of those other like sports or anything else like that, I learned baseball is big here in the United States. So I learned how to bat with my right. I'm not very good, so maybe I should have learned left-handed, but yeah, so I was in terms of writing, I must have been given a choice where I grew up and writing is interesting. Like if I, do you currently write with your right hand, or do you write with your left hand now, or?
I write. I'm used to writing with my right hand, but I can write with my left. But okay. I don't. I do most things with my left hand.
Okay. Yeah, because those early years, like developmentally, it's so like I wonder if what the effect is on a young person if you are made to write with the non-dominant hand. Like if my teachers had made me write with my right hand, I wonder if that might have slowed down my progress in certain things, because just that brain hand connection, it's interesting.
Yes, it is, because I found out that it can have different effects. Some negative effects, and some positive effects too. Probably, in my case, I think that it made me what I am. In some respects, I always have that attitude. For instance, when I went to the conservatoire and to learn bass, acoustic bass properly, I said, well, I can't just do that, the wrong way. So, and they told me, no, we don't want to hear about that. My attitude was just to say, well, okay, I'll just, I don't need you,
Yeah.
I'll do it myself. I find my own way. And I've always had that attitude for many things, and probably it's because of the early stages in my life with so that I probably have some ability to solve problems. And, in my job, daily job at the Moulin Rogue, that's probably part of it. One of the reasons that I enjoy the job I'm doing, because solving problems is my daily routine.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing about it.
Yeah, I wonder, because it shouldn't be, as a teacher, it really shouldn't be that much of a difference teaching someone. If I had a student playing left-handed versus right-handed, I don't know if that would really affect things much, because even demonstrating, it looks the same. It's just reversed hands. I have some younger students I work with. I might, the next time someone's a left-handed person, maybe have them try that, to try playing.
Yes, because I think that there is the proportion of left-handed people. It's about 15%, and many people don't really know that they are left-handed. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't show. Young kids don't really know until they are 4 or 5. It's even at school. They imitate what the others do, and so probably maybe that was your case. So you don't realize that you're left-handed until you have trouble with your right hand. So, but it's interesting to know that. It takes some time to realize that you're a real right-handed person or not. It's not obvious right away.
Yeah. One thing that D'Addario strings specialist Lyris Hung gets asked a lot is, how can you keep your strings in better playing condition? Here are her thoughts.
I get a lot of this question. People often ask me, I don't want to spend a lot of money. What can I do? And I mean, my answer is unfortunately really, really simple. And that's just to clean your strings, to keep your strings really clean. And a lot of people, moan and at that, because they clean their strings. Most people will clean their strings, but not often enough.
There you go. Simple, huh? Keep that cloth handy and wipe down those strings after each use. Thanks to D'Addario for sponsoring the podcast. I will experiment because I start a lot of bass players these days here in San Francisco, and I even have there's a rotation at a school that I teach at where everybody, when they're in 6th grade, so they're, I don't know how old that is, 9 or 10, they come and they play string instruments for 6 weeks and then they move on. I might the next group that comes in ask who's left-handed and just see, I'll maybe do a little research of my own and see what the effect is. Cause I'm so glad that my teachers didn't force me to write right-handed, because it must have an impact on development.
It does. It does. And I was surprised to, I found the school teacher where my daughter was at school. I live in a small village just outside Paris. And they told me that they don't do that anymore. But it was not so long ago that, the State Department, national education, in France, they probably stopped that in the 70s. It's not so long ago.
Right. That's not long ago. Oh.
And also in Asia, I think it's still the case. When you learn to write in Japan, the traditional, it's not letters, but characters. Chinese, you have to learn with your right hand. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some more. We'll see some more left-handed, bass players playing left-handed. Change can be slow sometimes, but I'll look forward to seeing more people, coming out of the gate, and I'll try to do my part.
Yeah, nice. But yes, there is also, I listen to your podcast frequently, and it's a question also that maybe I find is interesting is what I'm 64, and what about aging musicians, because very often you interview bass players who are not so young, people like Gary Carr or Chuck Israel. And it's a question that is not really frequently asked. What do they do to keep playing even when getting older? Do they have a routine, a special, how do they address that subject?
That is that's an interesting topic. That's something that I think maybe I feel awkward bringing it up. So I haven't.
Yeah, I know it's not fun, asking that kind of question. But,
Right, but no, the only person that, and I think he brought it up, but Gary Carr was talking about when I interviewed him at the International Society of Bassists convention in 2017, and he was talking about how he's been, you lose some bone density as you get older, and how that was affecting his vibrato. Because his arm weight is different. It's different. You spend your whole life, and then, and so he started lifting weights with the purpose of increasing some density to get that feeling back. And Chuck Israels is a great example. I mean, I think Chuck, as we're talking now, is 80, and he's moving around. You would never know he's 80 when you meet it. He's in incredibly good shape. That's something I should explain. I mean, have you thought about that for yourself as?
Oh yes, I do, and because it's. There is the physical part of that, joints, muscles, and you feel, it hurts there and there. So I try to keep fit as much as possible. I'm lucky enough, I'm in good health. But there is also the brain and, memorizing things, remembering, hearing also. Hearing might be, after a musician's life, you lose some of the treble. Yes, I think it's not something that easy to ask, because sometimes I get the feeling that when you're musician. You're young and fine, or you're dead. There's nothing much in between. Getting old is not. Nobody wants to talk about that too much.
But it's a reality. Like, I myself, I'm 42 right now, so I'm just at that point where I'm starting to realize, like, I don't feel quite like I did when I was like 22, and I've been really focusing on, like you're talking about, fitness, trying to make sure I eat well, and that the effect that has on me cognitively, just brain funk, and I'm definitely starting to notice those things that I remember my father talking about, when I was younger. But yeah, and the memory things and the hearing things. I mean, do you notice a different? I mean, you've been playing Moulin Rouge for these couple decades. Like, has it changed for you? Like in terms of do you notice a difference now than maybe 17 years ago?
Yes, not so much. I have a good memory. So
yeah.
That's no problem so far. I think that I changed my daily practice on the instrument. You were talking with I think it was Larry Grenadier lately about he was talking about overplaying, and and that's I'm taking paying attention to that. Probably also I find that sometimes the other musicians in the band, you're speeding, or slowing down, or so. Maybe I have to work on my keeping time again. I did that when I was young, but learning new songs, not being in a routine, and trying to. I'm still in love with music and everything that goes around, but playing in the same place 6 nights a week, you can lose interest. Some people do, but I don't. I think it's. I'm lucky to have that kind of gig.
Yeah, well, it always interests me, musicians who have a regular, whether it's the work you're doing or a symphonic orchestra position where you're going to the same place every week. Yeah, people sometimes they do kind of lose interest and check out and becomes a job, and then other people, they stay inspired and they keep motivated. And it seems like one thing that a lot of the people who continue to have that passion is finding these new projects or new things to explore. Like a great example is Barry Green, who I love Barry Green. He appears to me to have as much energy now in his 70s as he probably did in his 30s. And he's always on to the next new project. And and that's a real contrast to some other players I've known who are very much sort of, they go in and they punch the clock and play and then they leave.
It's too bad.
But I think like finding that passion or finding new things to appreciate, even if you're playing like professionally, is that same thing. That doesn't mean that you can't be exploring new projects or doing recitals or thinking about your own playing in different ways and continue to learn and grow.
Yeah, and I think that I think I have to, because I'm 64. I probably leave my job in 2 or 3 years, and I want to keep on playing music after that, and I'll have to find new people to play with, and probably completely different music. Yeah. So I'm learning Portuguese at the moment. All right. Because I love Brazilian music, and I once a week I go to a Brazilian cultural center in Paris, and I have in mind to meet some musicians and start something else. And so and listening to your interview also keeps me younger.
Hey, oh, that's great to hear. Well, it's fun. It's fun for me to connect with people from all different walks of life, and I learn a lot, and so it's just fun to be able to put that out in the world. And that's part of the wonders of modern technology, that we could be sitting here.
Yeah.
I'm here in San Francisco, you're in France, and chatting like we're in the same room. I mean, so thanks for being up for chatting. I mean, it was one of those
Well, thanks.
Well, it was a great. Your email really made me think about, and it's like, oh well, let's talk about left hand. In addition to you've done all these interesting things in your career, but the whole left-handed thing. It's an interesting topic, and it's something I've never really chatted about at all. So I appreciate you thinking of that.
Well, thanks a lot too, because I think it's a subject that must be brought to the attention of more people.
Bernard, thank you so much for chatting. Really interesting topic, and I just enjoyed everything that we talked about today. And I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. So great to have you along on this journey with us here. We do this each and every week, and I just get such a thrill chatting with people from all walks of life and different countries. And it really is cool. Like Bernard and I were talking about modern technology, just being able to have a conversation like this over FaceTime, which is what we did halfway across the globe, but it's like we're in the same room. I mean, technology certainly has drawbacks, but it has a lot of positives, and something like this I think of as one of the real positives of it. And whether you're new to the podcast or you've been listening a long time, if you'd ever want to reach out and let me know a little bit about yourself or a topic, like Bernard did with this topic today, send me a message, feedback@contrabassconversations.com. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast, it's totally free, and there are lots of ways to do it. contrabassconversations.com/subscribe will give you all that information. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, and Mitch Mooring. If you're looking for a double bass, Mitch makes great instruments in the Dallas area. Check him out online at mitchmooring.com. I'm your host, Jason Heath, coming to you each and every week from San Francisco, California. And we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.